in the end, it really is just about sitting down and putting in the time. Welcome to the video. Today, I'm going to be talking about how I study part-time while working full-time. I'm studying for a master's in AI ethics at the University of Cambridge. And I do that part-time, and then I work full-time as a software engineer in London. My course is hybrid, so I go in once a term for about a week, and I spend the entire week there doing 9 to 6 lectures. And that's at the start of every term. For the rest of the term, I pretty much do everything remote. For me, this works super well because I work full-time, so I work 9 to 5-ish during the weeks. And so whenever I need to go to university, I use my annual leave and I go. Then for the rest of the term, for the next 7-8 weeks or so, I have one 90-minute seminar that I go to every week. And then sometimes there's recorded lectures and recorded talks or interviews with someone, but those are all quite asynchronous, so it's a matter of watching it in your own time. So I pretty much only have like 90 set minutes in the week where I have to be there in person, which works super well around my work because it means I basically just block out that lunchtime every week. For non-residential weeks, I do probably about 15, 20 hours of study a week. Well, I aim to do 15, 20 hours of study a week. I think in practice that's closer to 15. And then at the end of every term, then I have to submit a 5,000 word essay. So that's kind of what my term leads up to. So let's get into it. Here's 7 ways that I manage working full-time while studying part-time, or some similar title that I will put right here. Number 1, discipline. It kind of goes without saying, but if you are working and studying and doing things that require a huge amount of time, you actually have to be quite disciplined with your time. Before I started studying, I already was quite busy just with work and socializing and other commitments. And so a lot of those did have to be thrown out in favor of studying. I definitely spend less time seeing my friends. I spend less time volunteering, and that's just a sacrifice that I knew I would have to make when I started studying. I tend to put study slots into the week proactively as the weeks fill up. I have quite a busy calendar, which tends to be booked up several weeks in advance. As and when I put things into the calendar, I will also take a look through the week every time and note that, oh, actually, I've already filled up a few of the evenings this week, so I should probably fill the other ones now with study, just so that I have time for it. So this is pretty much what my calendars look like. Week on week, there's a few of the evenings that will just be study time. And that's how I keep on top of actually getting the hours to study. Number 2, reducing friction. When things are hard to get started with, I feel like I will always put them off and just kind of make excuses. So what has been really helpful for me has just been really reducing that friction in getting started. I tend to have a lot of my reading and stuff on my phone, so that if I ever am on the tube, if I'm traveling, I can read something on my phone. If I'm in the doctor waiting room and I know I've got 5-10 minutes, I can start reading something. Having that friction really low really helps to kind of get the little bits in during the week, which really add up to all those hours where you actually do spend studying. I also try to just make it really easy to take notes and not have this really arduous process around having to sit down and spend a lot of time taking notes, because I found that if it's so time consuming to actually take the notes, then it just makes me want to not take the notes. Whereas what I need for my course is to do the reading and take notes to then write essays with. So for me, I find it a lot easier to just read and highlight and then take a second pass over those notes when I have time to sit in front of the laptop and read through the notes and tag things and stuff. Having that first bar of it being really easy to take notes means that I get through just a huge amount of reading in the week because it's just so easy to get started. It's also nice to just have multiple ways to consume content, because it means that if I'm not really in the mood to read, then I can still take a walk, do some listening to a lecture or to a video or a podcast or something. So I'm still getting through a lot of the things that I need to do. Number 3, optimization. Because I don't have a lot of time to study because most of my week is still spent working, it means that I really try to optimize my time when it comes to studying. So I try not to have very kind of half-focused studying, that either I'm studying and I'm fully focused or I'm not studying. I'm a big fan of just setting a timer and saying, okay, for the next 45 minutes, you'll just sit and get through this thing. And then when that's done, you can take a break. Doing a humanities course, it's quite easy sometimes to start reading something like a book, which is many hours of investment, and then finish it and think that was useless. I try to always skim through things, read summaries of books, of papers before I start reading them, just that I know that it's going to be something useful. I found that usually reading papers, you want to read through the abstract or you want to have seen it referenced in another paper to know that it's got the relevant content for you. And with books, I find it really useful to read the book review in a blog post or Instagram post before I get started, so that I get a gist of what the book's going to be about. And I can already pick out whether it's got the themes that I'm looking for. I also read everything really fast. I'm quite a skim reader through a lot of things, so I'll read quite quickly, and then if I see something that I think is going to be useful for me, then I'll stop and read a little bit more deeply, and I listen to everything very fast. So anything that I'm watching on YouTube, I'll have on double speed, and then any podcasts or audiobooks or things that I'm listening to, I tend to listen to at triple speed, because it basically reduces what would be a 12-hour book into a 4-hour book, which is a lot less time investment. And I think you can always slow things down if you're trying to really listen to what they're saying and pick bits out and writing things down. One of the most important things I find in being productive and being productive in the long term and over a large number of weeks is just being able to take breaks and just being super intentional about having that time to yourself, having that time to decompress after you focused. I find it really important to have evenings that are quite sort of nothing evenings in between all the study and social evenings. In between these periods of focus, I find need to be times that I spend with my friends, time that I spend going to the gym, time that I spend taking a walk. These are all parts of being productive, just because it gives your brain a bit of downtime. And I find it so consolidating, especially taking a walk. After I've done a longer period of study, I find it so nice to spend an hour or two taking a walk, and it really helps me consolidate and have a think about all the things that I read, and gives my brain a bit of a break to really kind of connect things together rather than just always trying to be cramming things into your head and never really kind of synthesizing it in any way. One of the most useful things for me, being someone who works and studies, is really having that separate space for the two things. I really try to keep the office for working, and then I have a separate space where I go to study. And that space for me is my focus space, really getting into the reading. And that's really nice because it kind of keeps that separation between my work and my study. It means that I just don't bring any of that stuff into my home, which is so nice for me because it means that I can basically really just relax in my home and not associate it with having to be very focused and work very hard. Number five, six? Lost track already. Don't have to be smart to go to Cambridge. Number 6, prioritizing going to sleep on time. This is something that I find so important because for me personally, I'm quite an early riser, but because I want to wake up early, going to sleep on time is really helpful for me to give me that time in the morning to do all the things that I want to do in the morning. And so if I wake up early, it means that I can sit for 45 minutes and study also before I go to work. And that's such a kind of peak focus time before I'm caught up in the day's work. I think sometimes late at night, you can get pulled into the trap of being on your phone and scrolling through TikTok or Instagram and just kind of getting caught up in this endless feed. And suddenly it's been 2 hours. I'm quite disciplined about putting my phone away and going to sleep. Popular advice is to not use your phone before you sleep. But I actually don't do that at all. I very often have my phone before I sleep, unless there's some reading or something that I've been wanting to do on the e-reader before I sleep. But I often just have the phone on with yellow light, and then it just works fine for me. It doesn't really keep me awake. Final bonus tip, if you're still here after so long. Sometimes people get caught up into this whole thing of, oh, it's like 2:03, so I can't start studying because that's not a round number. But I don't do that. Whatever time I've sat down to study, I'll just start studying. I don't wait for it to be round numbers. I just get started. And it helps me take all these little 10 minutes in between during the week but it also just helps me to not put off work. So I just set the timer, start the work, don't make any silly excuses. The real key with productivity is not all this like thinking about it. It's kind of just doing it. So if you want to do work and you want to do lots of work, part of that is going to be doing lots of work. And so for me, if I need to study, I need to study. I find that because I spend less time working on systems and trying to figure out ways to be productive and more time just doing things, then I just spend more time doing things. In the end, it really is just about sitting down and putting in the time. And that for me has certainly been what helps me get through so much. I hope that's been helpful. These are kind of the main things that for me have really been important over the last year while I've worked full-time and then studied part-time. I'd love to hear about other people's experiences as well, just in managing their time and getting through a lot of work and effectively studying while working. That's it. That's the video. Bye. Who will watch this video? I'm not going to publicize this anywhere. How did we all even get here? Why are my glasses so reflecty? Okay. No, I don't. That's a lie. Where was I? Oh, well, I was pointing. So,